Sadik Tesam with Beis, we start in the Mishnah. Elon Shahaya Mesach ala Aretz. You have a tree that is a 10 tfachim tall at least, and then the branches come down and it sort of covers the area around and around. So you probably have it in the picture here, yeah. Tov Kuf Pei Vov. You have a tree that has the right width and the right height for a Rishus HaYachid, and the point is that because the branches come down 3 tfachim within the ground, so therefore it's lowered to the ground as if it's fully surrounded with a nice mechitza. It encloses the area. So if the branches are not higher than the floor, 3 tfachim, so then metaltalin tachtov, you can carry under it. It's a good mechitza like a Rishus HaYachid. Sharashav gevayim in haaretz gimel tfachim. If you have the roots of a tree that are lifted, are raised off the ground, 3 tfachim, lo yeshiv alei, you're not allowed to sit on them. The halacha b'negei to a tree is that there's a gzeira of Chazal not to use a tree because you might come to pull off a branch. So if you're sitting on something which is within 3 tfachim to the ground, it's not considered to be part of the tree. In picture Tavkuf Peivav also, yeah, you have the sharashim. But if the sharashim are above 3 tfachim from the ground, so that's considered to be part of the tree. It's not the ground. That's a tree that you're not allowed to sit on and use on Shabbos. Sagt the Gemara, Amar Rav Bereder Rav Yeshua, metaltalin ba yesimi beis hasayim. If you have a massive tree, pretty big tree here, and you have this area, or a few trees together maybe, that is surrounded with this mechitza of the branches of the tree, but it's more than beis hasayim, more than 100 by 50 amas, which we spoke about many times before, and there's nobody that's living indoors under this tree. So it's asa, you're not allowed to carry there. My time, mishum dahavet dire, even if someone could live there, but it's not a permanent dwelling that you could live there. Someone that wants to be outside in the field, so you could live there under this tree, in the open air. Anytime you have a place which is made for dira, for someone to live there in the open air, you can't carry more than beis hasayim. So over here, if it's so large, that was the gzeira of Chazal, that's such a large Rishus HaYachid, you can't carry. If you have the roots that are higher than 3 tfachim from the ground, so it's considered to be the tree. It's not considered to be a part of the ground, so you can't sit on it. Itmar, we learned the following machlokes. What happens? You have roots from a tree that go higher than 3 tfachim, but then it comes back down l'toich shloisha. Goes back down within 3 tfachim. Part of it is above 3 tfachim. It starts off above 3 tfachim, then it comes down. So you have this in the picture, Tov Kuf Pei Zayin. So then what's the halacha? Do you go according to the fact that it starts off higher, or the fact that it comes down lower? Rabba Mamuta l'shtamish ben. Rabba says you're allowed to use it. It comes down lower than 3 tfachim. Rav Shesha Sama Asa l'shtamish ben. Rav Shesha says no, you can't use these roots. You're using a tree on Shabbos. The Gemara explains the machlokes. Rabba says you're allowed to use it. The chol pachis migimel the arahi. In that area of the roots which you're using is coming back down. It's within 3 tfachim to the ground, so it's part of the ground. It's not it's not a tree. So you can sit on it, you can use it. Rav Shesha Samar, also l'shtamish ben. Rav Shesha says you're not allowed to use it. The kivin de mikoyach isaka asi. Since these roots go up above 3 tfachim, even though it comes back down, but if you look at where it comes from, before it came higher than 3 tfachim, so asurin, so therefore it's going to be asa. Now the Gemara explains the case of where they're arguing. The damu kim shunisa, when you have roots that are similar to mashunisa, which is a kind of a rock that you have in a mountain that has, it's not a smooth rock, a rock that has like pieces coming out of it. That's what this mashunisa is. So you have a kind of root that also comes out of the ground, but it's not like a smooth root, like roots usually. Usually roots have pieces that come out of it. Take a look and picture Tov Kuf Pei Ches. Right? So you have a root that's protruding from the ground, and the root itself has pieces that are coming out of it. There are some pieces that are coming out below 3 tfachim, some that are higher than 3 tfachim, and then there's a piece that comes out of this root that's partially above and partially below.
So what's the question?
Let's see, the Gemara is going to explain. No, the Gemara will say everything now. Let's see. So the klal is above 3 tfachim you're not allowed, under 3 tfachim you are allowed. To use it.
The branch,
Yeah, it's not a branch, it's a root. So the klal is above 3 tvachim, you're not allowed to use the root or branch, and below 3 tvachim you are allowed. But over here, it's not so clear. What happens if you have this root that comes out, it goes above 3 tvachim, but then there's pieces coming out of this root, and part of it goes into 3 tvachim. The Gemara says a different part of this. The salkin le'ela, those parts of this root that goes above 3 tvachim, asurin, going to be asur, because it's above 3 tvachim. That's not part of the ground. The nachsan l'satoi, those part of this root that stick out and are below 3 tvachim, sharu, are going to be allowed. It's below 3 tvachim. L'tzdadin, the question is, those that are in the middle, as you see here in the picture, that middle piece that comes out, it starts off above 3 tvachim, but it hangs down below 3 tvachim. Over there is the machlokes. That's the machlokes of Rabbi and Rav Sheshes. Pluk to the Rabbi and Rav Sheshes. Do you go at the beginning of where it comes out, and it starts off above 3 tvachim? Or do you look where it ends up? That over here it ends up below 3 tvachim, so therefore you could use it. That's the machlokes.
Better than this case?
It's the same. It's a similar Indian. You're right. It's the same thing. But the Gemara is just, The Gemara is just explaining the.
You have to say there's half a root sticking out of the root.
And a chanami. The chayre, the Gemara is just spelling out. Yeah. I don't see. The Gemara is giving a mashal, an example of where you have this chayre. The Gemara is here going to give a few examples. Another example. V'chein anigra. The same thing is also with an anigra. What's an anigra? So if you look in picture Tovkuf Peites, so you have over here a stream that's between 2 fields, and inside the stream you have the tree, and the tree comes out above the walls of the stream. So where are you going to measure this tree that's coming out of here? Or they have a picture of a stump of a tree. It's not even a full tree. If you're going to measure from the ground, so then it's going to be below 3 tvachim. So it's part of the ground. If you're going to measure from the bottom, inside the stream, so then it's higher than 3 tvachim. It's not that it's taller than 3 tvachim. So where do you measure from? So this is also going to be the machlokes of Rabbi and Rav Sheshes. Do you look at the beginning from where it starts, and therefore it's asur? Or do you look at the pile where it ends up, and therefore over there it's within the 3 tvachim of the ground? It's another example for the machlokes. A third example of the machlokes. V'chein bekeren zavis. You have a tree that's positioned in the corner near walls, which you have in picture Tov Kuf Tzadik. Right? So the question is, you want to be able to use the tree that's ending near the top of a wall. So if you look at that part of the tree and the top of the wall, it's within 3 tvachim to the top of the wall. So it could be almost like flush with the top of the wall. But if you look at the bottom, it's much higher than 3 tvachim off the ground. So you look at the bottom. So Rav Sheshes is machmer and says, you look at the bottom, you have to look at the beginning. And Rabbi says, no, we're makel. We can look at where it ends up. And over there, it's only within 3 tvachim to the wall. So another example. Now the Gemara brings a incident or a case of a tree that grew inside a house. Ahu dikla davala Abaya. Abaya had a tree that was planted inside a house. Va'avesalik bi'ipuma. And this tree protruded like in a skylight. It came out from the ceiling of the house. So you look in picture Tovkuf Tzadik Aleph. A tree planted indoors and it comes out. So now the question is, if you look at the rooftop, the height of the tree is not more than 3 tvachim above the rooftop. So over there, that part of the tree is it's almost flush with the ground of the roof. But if you look at the root of the tree, where it grows from inside the house, over there it's much higher than 3 tvachim. So the question is, the tree on the rooftop, could I use that part of the tree there? Is it considered to be like a tree that's more than 3 tvachim or not? So what happened? So this tree, Asla Kamed Rav Yosef, they asked Rav Yosef about this tree, Visharale, and he said it's allowed to use because look at the rooftop. Over there it's within 3 tvachim to the rooftop. That Rav Yosef paskin that it's allowed, that's only according to Rabbi. Rav Sheshes would be machmer. Rav Sheshes says, look at the beginning of the tree, and the tree at the bottom is protruding more than 3 tvachim from the ground. So the Gemara pshita, it's obvious that this is Rabbi's opinion, like we just learned. So the Gemara, no, it's not so obvious. Mao the Teime, I would think that Rav Sheshes would agree here. Afilu Rav Sheshes, basic command the mali domi. Maybe a tree that's growing indoors, we had many times regarding a house, that when it's enclosed, it's as if that area is filled. And therefore I would say that the tree that's growing inside is not considered to be protruding out of the ground. No, it's like it's covered inside the house. And therefore, and even Rav Sheshes would agree that you could use the part of the tree that sticks out on the roof that's less than 3 tvachim high. Kamash Malon, so therefore it tells me that no, Rav Sheshes would argue even in this case. So this is the machlekes of Rabbe and of Sheshes. Now the Gemara brings our Mishnah and tries to prove regarding this machlekes. So Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Sharash of Gavayim and Aretz Gimel Tfachim, you have a tree and the roots are high, 3 Tfachim, Lo Yeshiv Aleim. You can't sit on it, you can't, it's protruding from the ground more than 3 Tfachim, it's not part of the ground. Hey Chidami, what is this Mishnah talking about? If after it protrudes higher than 3 Tfachim, it doesn't then bend down and go within 3 Tfachim to the ground, Pshita, isn't it obvious? Just like any other branch that you're not allowed to use, the Gzeir of Chazal. So why would a root be any different? If the root goes above 3 Tfachim, it's obvious that you can't use it. So it would make sense to say that the only Chiddush of our Mishnah is Elalav Afagav the Hadri Kifi, that we're talking about roots that comes above 3 Tfachim, but then it bends back down, and the Mishnah is saying that even after it bends down, you can't use it. So this is a question on Rabbah that says that once it bends back down, you could use it. It's like the Gemara, no, it's not a raya. Lo'ilam the loy hadri kifi. Really, it's not bending back down within 3 Tfachim. So what's the chiddush of our Mishnah? V'hakam ashmalon afal gav that sidoi echad shavel la'aretz. You have roots which the ground is not level. On one side, the roots are within 3 Tfachim to the ground, and with one side not. That was the chiddush of our Mishnah. Do I have a picture for this? Yeah, over here in picture Tov Kuf Tzadik Beis. So in one place it's shavel la'aretz, and in one place it's not. In one place there's an opening, so it has a height of 3 Tfachim. So even though it's, so that was a chiddush of our Mishnah, that if as long as it's exposed in one side of the roots, that it's not within 3 Tfachim to that ground, on that side, you're not allowed to sit on it. Even if on the other side it is within 3 Tfachim to the ground. Tana Rabbanon, Shar She'ilon Shegavayim and Aretz Gimel Tfachim. You have the roots of a tree that are tall 3 Tfachim off the ground. Or there is an opening in the ground 3 Tfachim below. Like you have it right over here in that same picture that we just saw. There's a sort of a pit that's dug in the ground, so the roots become exposed on one side, and it's higher than that pit more than 3 Tfachim, or 3 Tfachim. So even though on one side it's flush to the ground, you can't sit on the roots over there. Because on Shabbos you're not allowed to go on a tree, you're not allowed to hang on a tree, you're not allowed to lean on a tree. You shouldn't go on a tree from before Shabbos, and to stay over there in the tree the whole Shabbos. Echad ilan, this is a gzeira chazal made with trees, ve'echad kol ha-behema, and also a gzeira with animals, not to use an animal on Shabbos. And also, Aval, the Brisa says, however, boyer, shiach, umayre, geder, different kinds of pits, and a cistern, and so on, and a cave, and a geder, a fence, a wall, metafis v'oilem, metafis v'yere. There's no gzeira of chazal, you're allowed to climb up and climb down. And the only issue is a tree. Rashi explains the chiddush of this brayse is you might have thought that the reason you're not allowed to go onto a tree is because of tircha. There are certain things you're not allowed to do on Shabbos because of extra tircha. So brayse is saying that's not the reason. The reason is only by a tree because you might come to pull off a branch. But if it's a pit or if it's a wall and so on, so there's no issue of pulling off a branch, so you're allowed to go up and down and on Shabbos. Tani Chad, we learned in one brayse, im Allah, if you went onto a tree on Shabbos, mutilated. So you're there on Shabbos, on the tree, you're allowed to climb down. The Tani Chada, on another brayse, it says, oscillated. If you're on the tree on Shabbos, you have to stay there the whole Shabbos. You're not allowed to come back down. So the question is, what's the halacha? Loi kashya. It's like the Gemara, it's not a contradiction. And the Gemara is going to give a few answers. One answer is, kame boidyaim, kame shechashecha. If you went onto the tree before Shabbos, and then it became dark. So you went on, you weren't Machal Shabbos, you weren't over in the Takan of Chazal when you went on. So then they allow you to come down. They weren't geyser that you should stay there. If you went on after Shabbos began, you were over in the Takan of Chazal, then they were geyser, you have to stay there. Other answer, and both of these braises, he went on to the tree in middle of Shabbos. If you went up b'sheigig, then there's no knas that he has to stay there. If you went up b'mezid, then he has to stay there. Another answer, in both cases, he went up b'sheigig. The argument here is sometimes Chazal apply a knas even by shegig in order not to make a difference between shegig and mezid. And if people are going to say, "Oh, I'm allowed to go down," they're going to say, "I was a shegig and go down." The Chazal were geyser and made shegig equal to mezid, and once you went on a tree on Shabbos, you're not allowed to come down. That's the argument here between these two braises. By saying, it's interesting, according to the other pshatim, it wasn't a machlokes. It was just saying, kan b'shegig, kan b'mezer. The kan b'shachashecha, kan b'boidyaim. In this pshat, it's saying that it's actually a machlokes. Mar sava kansinon, or mar sava loy kansinon. Did Chazal make a knas, even for a shegig, that it should be similar to mezid? These are the two braises. Now, the Gemara is going to try to say a different pshat in the machlokes of these two braises, based on another machlokes tanoim. Very interesting connection here. We can say that this is a machlokes tanoim. What is it? Because we learned the following machlokes regarding the mixture of the blood of karbonis regarding the zrika. Very interesting connection there. If you have blood that only the zrika is one zrika, what is that? So Rashi here says that would be a b'choir. Say it every morning from the karbonis. A b'choir is matana achas. So you have the blood of a b'choir, shenisarva b'nitanim b'matana achas, that was mixed together with the blood of another b'choir, for example, and it's all blood that you just have to give one sprinkle on the mizbeach. So there's no issue. Yunasnu b'matana achas. So then you sprinkle it all once on the mizbeach. Matan dalet b'matan dalet. If you have the blood of an animal, let's say a carbon chatos, so Rashi brings. So you have to do 4 sprinkles on the mizbeach. It was mixed together with another one that's matan dalet. You know, matan dalet. So you sprinkle it 4 times. How about matan arba b'matan achas? The carbon of 4 that has to be the zrika 4 times was mixed together with the one that the zrika is only once. So what do? Do you do the zrika 4 times or 1 time? So this is the machlokes here. You have to give the zrika 4 times. No, you do the zrika only once. Now the Braisa here itself is going to say the discussion between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, what's the basis of their argument. So Amalei Rabbi Eliezer, Harei Oiver al Baltigra. If you're doing only 1 time, so that animal, the carbon chatos, that has to be 4 times, the Baltigra, the Torah says 4 and you're doing less. Just like you're not allowed to add, you're not allowed to do less as well. So how could you do only once? Rabbi Yeshua says back to him, but Harei Oiver b'Bal Tosef. You're being Oiver b'Bal Tosef when you're doing 4, sprinkling 4 times, and mixed into this blood is the animal that has to be only once. So you're adding. So either way, there's an issue, either Bal Tigra or Bal Tosef. Rabbi Eliezer says, Lo amru elakeshuhu ba'atzmai. The isser of Bal Tigra is only if you have something that's itself. If you have the blood that has to be done 4 times by itself, and you sprinkle it only once, then you have a Bal Tigra. But if you're sprinkling it once because it got mixed with something else, so then there's no Bal Tigra. You're doing it only once because it's a suffix, because it got mixed with something else.
Bal Tosef, right?
Huh?
Bal Tosef, meaning Rabbi Eliezer, the question was on Bal Tosef?
Okay, Bal Tosef, okay, yeah. Did I do it?
No,
what?
Yeah,
okay, Peseder, okay, so it goes in Bal Tosef. Huh? Amalei Rabbi Yeshua. Now Rabbi Yeshua says the exact same svara. Leinema Bal Tigra. The isser of Bal Tigra is only elkeshu ba'atzmai, only when the blood is separately and you do less than you're supposed to. So they both have an equal svara to explain why there's no Bal Tigra or no Bal Tosef. So what's the basis of this machlokes here? Now the Gemara adds another svara that Rabbi Yeshua said to explain his side. So now Rabbi Yeshua says, I'll tell you why it's better to be over on Bal Tigra and not Bal Tosef. If you're sprinkling extra 4 times, avarta Bal Tosef, you're being over on Bal Tosef. You're being over Bal Tosef by doing an action, by adding and sprinkling extra that you're not necessarily supposed to. However, if you're giving only once, avarta al Bal Tigra, you're being over on Bal Tigra, but you're not being over on any maisa. You're being over on Bal Tigra by sprinkling once, and then by abstaining to sprinkle more, automatically you're over on Bal Tigra, but you're not doing an action to do an isser. So therefore, it's better to be over on Bal Tigra, not Bal Tosef.
So you're over Bal Tosef 3 times.
Okay, true, interesting. I'm not you're right about that. A good point. Yeah. Okay, so sagt the Gemara, Rabbi Eliezer, so now what do we see over here? There's an argument in such a situation where you have a suffix what to do. Should you just do kumvasei? Should you be meisif and try to do the shleimus as much as possible? And you deiche the isser of Bal Tosef because adarabah, but you want to do the mitzvah bekumvasei as much as possible? Or no? You say Adarabah, you should abstain and not be over, and whatever you have to be over, it should be b'shev al tasa. So therefore the Gemara wants to apply it here to our case as well. That it's better to go ahead and do the mitzvah, to try to be yaitze the suffix, b'kum vasei, hochanami yated. So I could say the same thing over here. What's better? The person should stay on the tree the entire Shabbos. If he's staying on the tree the entire Shabbos, he's leaning on the tree, he's using the tree that Chazal said you're not allowed to use. Elamai, he's not doing an action, he's just staying there, he's not moving. Better that he should walk down from the tree and do an action. While he walks down the tree, he's using the tree and he's doing an action to use the tree, but he'll get off the tree. He'll get off and that's it. He won't have to be in the tree all Shabbos. When he's standing on the tree, he's not moving. It's a shev al tasa. But Rabbi Eliezer holds it's better to take an action v'kum vasein to get off the tree. So we could say, according to Rabbi Eliezer over here, the brayse that said that he can go down is his opinion. Rabbi Yeshua shev al tasa. Rabbi Yeshua that says over there that it's better to be over on Baltigra because there's no action being done. So over here as well, let him stay on the tree in the entire Shabbos. Even though a whole Shabbos he's going to be leaning on a tree, but it's b'shev al tasa. He's not taking action to walk down from the tree, so he stays there the whole Shabbos. Interesting. So that's the connection to this machlokes.
Is it feasible to stay a whole Shabbos and then you're not about Suda Shabbos, all these things?
It's a knas. We had a similar thing in the beginning of Masechta Shabbos when you get a person that was over and stuck out his hand to Shus Harabim. And there's a certain scenario where you have to hold your hand out the entire Shabbos. And you have to stay there in that position. So it's a knas. Huh?
While he sits on the tree, every second he's on the tree. It's like
he's doing a isser. He's using the tree. Yeah. So the Gemara is going to say that svara here. So the Gemara. No, it's not a connection. Dilme loihi. At kan lekam Rabbi Eliezer hasam koma say odif. Why did Rabbi Eliezer over there say sprinkle the blood 4 times? It's better kumva say ela de ka'avid mitzvah, because over there's a suffix and you're sprinkling it 4 times, so you're doing a mitzvah. That's why he says koma say is better. Avalacha de loyavid mitzvah over here, if he's going down from the tree, he's not doing any mitzvah. Hachanami loyede. Rabbi Yeshua would agree that he shouldn't come down from the tree. That's one svara, so we can't compare Rabbi Yeshua's opinion. The mile of kum vasei is only if it's a mitzvah. Here there's no mitzvah involved. V'inami at kan lekam Rabbi Yeshua hasam shev al tasa odiv. When Rabbi Yeshua over there said that shev al tasa is better, ella only over there the loy ka'avad isura, because there's no isur involved in the shev al tasa. The fact that he's not sprinkling another 3 times, he's not doing an isser. He's not actively doing an isser. But over here, he's leaning on the tree. Every single second he's using the tree, he's leaning the tree. Why should he be on the tree a whole Shabbos, leaning on the tree, doing an isser? Let him walk down, and he won't be continuing to do the isser the entire Shabbos. So it's better to go down because there's an isser involved. So over there's a mitzvah involved, and here there's no mitzvah. And over here there's an isser involved, and there's no isser involved. So therefore we can't compare these two inyanim. Tani Chad, we learned in one brayse, echad ilon lach, vechad ilon yavish. Whether you have a moist tree, and whether you have a dried up tree, you're not allowed to go on to it on Shabbos. V'tani yidach in a different brayse we learned, bamed varam amurim belach. Only if you have a tree that's still alive, it's still moist. That will be yavish, a dry tree, mutter, you're allowed to use it on Shabbos. So we have 2 different brayses that say 2 different things. Amar Rav Yehuda loy kashya. It's not a question. Kan b'shegizei machlif. If the stump of the tree the shoots will come out and it'll still grow from it again, so it's not really totally dry. So you're not allowed to go on it on Shabbos. Kan b'shegizei machlif. If the tree is totally dry, there's no branches that are growing out from it anymore, from the stump of the tree, so then you're allowed to go on it on Shabbos. That's the pshat in these 2 brayses. Frek the Gemara, gizei machlif, yavish kareslei. If we're talking about a stump of a tree that there are still branches that are growing out from it, that's what the brayse meant when it was talking about a dry tree. There's still branches that are growing out from it. That can't be the answer. El zok the Gemara loy kashya. The answer of the stira is different. Kan be meisak chama, kan be meisak shamim. It's a difference if it's in the summer or it's in the winter. In the summer, so as Rashi says, in the summer, so then a dry tree is allowed to go up on it, because everybody sees the difference between a live tree and a dead tree. You see, it has no branches, and all the other trees are growing with the leaves and fruits. In the winter, though, you can't see the difference. A dead tree and a live tree look very similar, so therefore they said you shouldn't even go onto a dead tree either. You confuse the 2. But even in the summer, when you're going onto a dead tree, hanasri peri, there could be leftover fruits on the tree that by you going onto it, you're causing the fruits to fall down. So it's taka only if there's no fruits. But there's branches from that tree that can come off when you go on it. Especially a dry tree, the branches will fall off. So the Gemara no begeduda. It's talking about you just have the tree, how do they tie geduda there? The stump of the tree or a bare trunk of the tree without any branches on it. Okay, so that's a dry tree, has to be no fruits, no branches. It's like the Gemara, is this true? V'harav ikle la fastia. Rav came to this place of fastia, v'osar begeduda, and he said, even a bare trunk that's dry, you're not allowed to use it on Shabbos. So we see that even this is osar. So the Gemara says, no. Rav bika motza v'goda bageder. We had this in the Masechta here before, that in a certain situation where Rav saw people were not keeping Shabbos properly, so he made an extra gzeira to be geider together that they shouldn't go on to even such a kind of tree. You're not allowed to walk on grass on Shabbos, that you're going to come to rip out the grass. You're pulling out with your feet and you're a sinner. In one brayse it says you're allowed to walk on grass on Shabbos. In another brayse it says that you're not allowed to go on grass on Shabbos. Loy kashya, it's not a question. Ha belachim, when you have moist grass, which is properly connected and still growing, so then you're pulling it out. Ha b'yaveshim, if it's already dried up, so then it's not an issue. If you can walk in it on Shabbos. Viba Yisayim, another answer is ha belachim. In both prices, it's talking about moist grass. V'loy kashya, it's not a question. Can be moisachame, can be moisachshamim. It's a difference if it's in the winter or it's in the summer. Another answer, both of them are talking about in the summer, and you have the grass that's growing properly. It's a difference if he's wearing shoes or if he's not wearing shoes. If he's not wearing shoes, so Rashi says the grass gets stuck between the fingers of your feet and it pulls out the grass. But if you're wearing shoes, it doesn't get stuck and you can walk smoothly on it. Another answer, in both cases you're wearing shoes. If your shoes have spikes, so then it pulls out the grass. If it doesn't have spikes, it doesn't pull out the grass. Another answer, in both cases your shoes have spikes. If you're talking about very short grass, so it doesn't get entangled in your spikes. But if you have grass or weeds that are growing and it's taller and it gets entangled, so then it's an issue, then you're not allowed to walk. And the Gemara concludes after all of this, now that we paskin like Rab Shimon, what does Rab Shimon hold? That a davar she'ei miskaven is allowed, so you're walking and you're not even being mechaven to pull out the grass, kulu shari, you're allowed to walk in grass in all of these cases. But as the Rishonim and the Paiskim will say here, that's only in a case that it's not psik reisha. If you know for a fact that you're walking with such kind of shoes in a way that it's definitely going to pull out grass, then you're not allowed. But any other case, when you walk on grass and it's not sure that it's going to pull it out, it's ein miskaven and it's completely mutter. The Gemara now brings the same pasuk we spoke before and it darshens it in a different inyan. A person is not allowed to force his wife for dvar mitzvah, the marital relations, if it's not done willingly. If he's forcing her, you're not allowed. A person that's forcing biraglayim, which the Gemara here learns is going on the mitzvah of marital relations, he's a chayta. If a person forces his wife, he'll have children that are not mehoganim, that are not appropriate, not proper. What's the source for this? That it affects the quality of the midas of the children. Gam beloy das, if it's done without consent, nefesh loy toiv, then the nefesh of the child doesn't have good midas. Tanya Nami Yachi will learn the same thing in a braisa. Gam beloy das, nefesh loy toiv, ze akoifish to lidvar mitzvah, that he forces his wife for this mitzvah. Ven va'otz beraglaim chayte, the pasuk we brought before, this braisa darshans it differently. Ze haboyel v'shayne, that it's negative if a person has marital relations twice, and one after the other. In fact, the Gemara, is that true? Is that a problem? Eini, is it true? V'ha'amar rove, harayt selas is kol bon of scharim, yivol v'yishna. If a person wants to have children scharim, so he should be boiled once and then again. So we see over here that it's a positive thing, that this is what's guiding, that there should be the Isha Mazras Tchila and the Isha's Mazriya later, as Rashi here explains, so it's a good thing. And says the Gemara like Kashya, Kan Ledas, Kan Shalei Ledas, if it's done with the consent of his wife, then it's okay, and if not, that's what the Braisa was saying, that it's not good. Amar Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rab Yochanan, Kol isha shetivaz ba'ala l'dvar mitzvah. If a woman is demanding from her husband for the dvar mitzvah, for the marital relations, havile banim, so then he'll have children. Sha'afilu b'deirish shel Moshe lehoye k'maisan. Such great children that even in the generation of Moshe you couldn't find such children. What's the ayah to this? When they were looking for the judges, so there had to be all these qualifications. They couldn't find Nevainim. But what does it say by Leah? Next week's parsha. Leah goes out to Yaakov Avinu. And she demands and she says, Elai Tova, you're coming with me. I hired you for tonight. I paid for you for tonight. That's what she demanded. She demanded. Uksiv, and then it says who was born. Ma Yasi Yisrael Rashayim Masayim V'cholachayim Alpiyim. So we see that she had, as a result of this relation, she had a child Yisachar, and from his descendants it was Yodei Bina. Even though in Moshe Rabbeinu's times you couldn't find Nevainim, but he had Yisachar later that came from this, from Leah. Fragt the Gemara, is this true? Eini, v'amar Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi said that a woman should not demand bepeh. Esa klolois neskal lochava. There were 10 curses that Chava was cursed after Chetei Tzadas. And the Gemara here brings them. That I will multiply. It will be a lot. Hey, what is this harba arba referring to? The blood by a woman. Achas dam nida, the blood of nida. V'achas dam psulim, and the dam psulim. This is the 2 clauses of Chetei Tzadas. And then it says harba arba etzvaynech. What is etzvaynech? Zetzar gidul banim, the pain of raising children. Heiraynech, the pregnancies, the pain of the pregnancy. Etzef teildi banim, kemashmoy, the pain of birth. Vel ishech tishukasech, your desire will be to your husband. Melamed isha mishtekekes al baila b'shoshe yetzel derech, that a woman has a chukah to her husband when he goes out on his way. And then the pasuk says, and this is what's negeya here to us, the stira, v'hu yimshul bach, and he will rule over you. Melamed isha tevaz belev, a woman, her demands, she keeps in her heart, and a man could be teveya, could demand from his wife marital relations with his mouth, but not a woman. And then the Braisa concludes, this is all from Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, Zuhi midet toive benoshim. This is a good attribute for women, that they should not demand verbally. So how did we say before that if the woman demands that brings good children? And says the Gemara, Ki kamrinon the marzi artsuye karmei. All it means is not that she's actually demanding, but she's appeasing him and she's beautifying herself in front of her husband in order to get him to do the mitzvah. Then she's going to have good children, but not if she's actually teveya b'peh. So the Gemara, now the Gemara goes back to what we said, that there were the curses here, the curses of Chetei Tzadas, and it said that there were 10 curses. So if you counted the curses, there were only 7. For the Gemara, Hani Sheva Havyan. There are only 7 curses over here. You don't have 10 here. So the Gemara, Ravdimi came and said, there's another 3. Atufa ka'oval. She wraps her hair around. She has to cover her hair like an oval. Menuda mikol adam. She's separated from all people. The Gemara will explain. V'chavusha bebeisa asurim. And she stays in her house almost like being in a prison. And Rashi says, because it says, Kol kvuda bas melech pnima, so a woman stays inside the house. But the Gemara explains, "My menuda mikol adam." What does it mean that she's separated from people? She's not allowed to be misyachid with another man. Yichud is also for the man and for the woman. Why is that considered to be a klala for the woman? The fact that a woman is not allowed to marry 2 men. A man could marry 2 women, but a woman can't marry 2 men. That's part of the klala of Chetei Tzadas. The Masnita Tana, in a Braisa it says more details of the klal of a woman. Megadela Seir, women have long hair, kililis, and it's similar to this shed, it's called lilis. Yesheves and Mashtanes, when they have to urinate, they have to sit. Mayim, Mashtanes Mayim ki behema, similar to a behema. Venasas Karla Baila, she becomes like a pillow to her husband in marital relations. This is also part of the klal of Chetei Tzadas. Ve'idoch, the Braisa before that didn't count these 3, or not the Braisa, it was Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. He didn't count these 3 and he said that it's only 10. Hani shvachula. These are actually considered to be praiseworthy for a woman. We learn from the animals, and from the birds. We become wise from the birds. We learn from the behemoths a positive thing. A preda that urinates sitting down, and Rashi says it's an union of tznius. It's a positive thing, and these things are not negative things. And you learn wisdom from a bird. What's the wisdom you learn from a bird? Zet tarnagal refers to a rooster. He appeases and then he has relations. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, this is the famous Gemara, even if Torah wouldn't be given, Chas v'shalom, we could learn tznius from a cat, gezel min a mala, and not to steal from an amala, from an ant, and arayis miyoina, from a dove that only has relations with who he's supposed to, v'derech eretz mitarnikol. And you could learn derech eretz, referring to how you have marital relations, from a rooster. Shemefayis v'achkach boil, as was just said. What's the pious of a tarnagal? The Gemara says a very interesting thing. You look at a rooster when it spreads its wings. So he says to the hen, ziga, I will buy you a coat, the matilech at karech, that will come down all the way to your feet, to your ankles. And then after the relations, so he doesn't have what to give her. Omar la l'shamte lekarbalte dahur tanagayla. So he bends down his head and he says, you can take off the karbalta, which is the crown on the head, the crest. You can take off the crest from my head. If I'll have how to buy it for you and I won't buy it for you, take off my crest. So he appeases before, he appeases after. This is the derech eretz of a tarnagal. So this Gemara, Ilmalel and Nitna Teira, it's interesting. It's quoted in a lot of places. In Chassidus, when this Gemara is brought, they always add Chas v'shalom. Ilmalel and Nitna Teira, Chas v'shalom. But there's a ha'ara from the Rebbe somewhere where the Rebbe asks, what's the gay for the Gemara to say this? Ilmalel and Nitna Teira. But Payal, the Eibishter gave us a Teira, and it's just a theory. If the Eibishter wouldn't give us Teira, what's a negeya? So the Rebbe says, Mikan Raya, that we know that Teira has Eidus Chukim and Mishpatim. The fact that there are certain mitzvahs that have a seichel to them, it's not something that happens to have a seichel. The kavana is that you should be mekayim it with the seichel, with the reason. Chukim, the Eibishter wants you to be mekayim it, not knowing the reason. Mishpatim, a person's going to say, I'm not over only signav, only sin of the Kabbalah sale. Really, I want to steal, I want to be, but I'm not being over b'Kabbalah. So no, those mitzvahs that are al piseichel, you have to be mekayim al piseichel. That's what the Gemara is pointing out, that these are the things you have to learn and know and see, that even animals have this kind of moral behavior. That's what the Gemara is making this point. Another thing that Rebbe points out in the Sikh is that over here in this Gemara is a mocker to the famous Vart of the Baal Shem Tov, that everything in the world, a Yid has to learn a Hiran Avedus Hashem. Here's a bunch of animals, and we're telling a Yid, look, observe the conduct of the animals and learn from them these beautiful midas. What does that mean? That the Eibishter created these animals in the world in order for a Yid to observe and to learn from them. Everything in the world is created for Yid and B'Shvil Yisrael. So this is a makar to the Vart of the Baal Shem Tov, to learn from the animals in the world. A good mechaydish, a good mechaydish.